Welcome to this quick tip tutorial on how to conduct an effective news interview. We have a longer and more extensive tutorial about interviewing strategies and techniques, and I'll link to that in the description below. But this short tutorial should be useful to get you started with a basic news interview. Whether you're just starting out or looking to hone your skills, these tips and tricks will help you to make the most of your interview session. Remember, for the typical news interview, your main goal is to capture usable sound bites that will help you tell the story about the news event. Short sound bites captured during the interview will provide first-person accounts from eyewitnesses and experts, and these sound bites will lend support to the story and add credibility to your reporting. Preparation is key, and that starts with doing your research. Before you even meet your interviewee, thoroughly research them, their background, and the topic of the interview. Look at their online profiles, their social media posts, previous interviews, and any relevant company or organizational information. This shows the interviewee that you're serious and helps you ask more informed questions. Next, prepare a list of questions. Write down questions that encourage the interviewee to elaborate rather than just giving yes or no answers. We refer to these as open-ended questions. Instead of addressing the who, what, when, and where, these questions often address the why, exploring issues and eliciting responses that go deeper, reaching below the surface. Well-designed questions will result in higher quality responses. And while you want to have a list of questions or topics prepared, be ready to be flexible and willing to follow a response with an appropriate follow-up question. Your interview should be a conversation, not just a progression through a list of prepared questions. As you prepare for the on-camera interview, it is important to consider the location where the interview will be recorded. Choose a quiet environment with minimal distractions if possible. Ensure the location looks presentable and that the background adds some context or other information, or at the very least, is not distracting. Inform others nearby that you're recording to avoid interruptions. With your interviewee in position, your shot framed, and your microphone set, it's time to press record. I always begin by asking the interviewee to say and spell their name and tell me what title would be appropriate to list as a lower third graphic on screen. Having this information at the beginning of the recording can save you a lot of time later when you're editing the piece and preparing it for distribution. You might also take this time to ask the interviewee for verbal consent or permission for Global News Alliance to use the recorded interview, video and audio, for distribution globally. Having this recorded permission could prove to be helpful if a legal challenge were to occur at a later time. Now it's time to begin asking the questions that you've prepared. Try to make the interviewee feel comfortable. Start with some light conversation to help them relax, especially if they're not used to being interviewed. Be warm and welcoming in your body language and do your best to maintain eye contact. Typically, you'll start with broad questions like, "Tell me about," or "What was it like?" Questions that are not too challenging. But then, if the subject matter allows, progress to more challenging questions that will potentially generate a more emotional or authentic response. Remember to adjust your tone based on the subject matter. Now, be sure to listen actively. This is arguably the most crucial interviewing skill. Pay close attention to what the interviewee is saying instead of thinking about your next question. Attentive listening builds trust and shows fairness. And here's a little tip that often yields a great result. Don't be afraid to pause after an answer in an effort to prompt the interviewee to elaborate further. People are often uncomfortable with silence, and that short pause will often encourage them to continue speaking, frequently providing a good soundbite. Be careful to keep your questions short and to the point. Avoid jargon or complex phrasing that might confuse your subject. Show understanding, especially when discussing sensitive topics. However, maintain your objectivity as a journalist. If an interviewee is evasive or the interview goes off track, try rephrasing your questions or approaching the topic from a different angle. However, know when to be firm in seeking answers. A good interview elicits emotion and reveals something new to the audience. Pay attention to nonverbal cues and any inconsistencies in their answers. As the interview is concluding, always ask if there's anything else the interviewee would like to add. This can often yield unexpected and valuable insights. And finally, be sure to thank the interviewee for taking the time to provide their perspective or viewpoint or expertise. Let them know that their contribution to your news story is appreciated. On some occasions, it might be helpful to ask them if there's someone else who they think should be interviewed for the story. These referrals can sometimes prove to be extremely useful. Before packing up and leaving the location, be sure to spot check the recording to ensure that the video and audio were recorded properly. Better to discover it now and have to do the interview again than to find out after it's too late. Once you return to your home or office, it is good to transcribe the interview so that you have the text of the conversation. This transcription can be done manually or using any one of several commercial products that do an amazing job. Once you have reviewed the interview and transcript, it's time to select the best sound bites as you begin to finalize your editing script. Remember, becoming a skilled interviewer takes practice and a genuine curiosity about people and their stories. Be tenacious, learn from each interview, and always strive to provide your audience with meaningful information. This has been another Global News Alliance Academy Quick Tips episode. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep telling stories about what God is doing in your church, your city, your country, and your continent. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, visit gna.news for more information about becoming a smartphone reporter and citizen journalist, and where you can find more information about our online curriculum leading to certification as a smartphone journalist for GNA. Until next time, may God bless you.